Becoming a parent can be an incredibly isolating experience for mums and dads alike. And unfortunately, there's a big gap in the system of support around fatherhood. You will have heard us talk about Man with a Pram and Dad's Group here on the podcast a number of times because we work with Dad's Group and it's an initiative we're incredibly passionate about. But today we get the honor of talking to the founders, Kate and Tom Docking, about their journey with Dad's Group into parenthood and their journey in their marriage and things that have helped and blessed them along the way. So in the lead up to Father's Day, if you're a new parent or you know a new parent, this episode is for you.
Honey, we need to chat.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Honey, We Need to Chat, the podcast all about communication and relationship. We believe when communication dies in a relationship, bad things happen. So if you're new, welcome. Great to have you. If you're coming back, welcome back. Great to have you back. Today, we're really pumped. We've got a really great conversation happening today. We've roped in some people to come in and talk with us. We forced it.
He's our boss, but we made him do this.
Yeah.
You would have heard us talking about Man with a Pram over the last few weeks on the episode, and you've also probably seen Blair repping Dad's Group and Man with a Pram the entire podcast life. So today we have founders of Dad's Group, Tom and Kate Docking, joining us, and they're going to share a little bit about their story. They're going to share about Man with a Pram, what that is a little bit more. They're going to share about Dad's Group and the heart behind it and what's important in this space and just about them and their lives. So thank you for joining us today, guys.
Thank you for having us. I'm nervous. We don't do these things.
It's kind of fun seeing
I like to hide behind all the programs, but this is scary.
Absolutely. Tom, we've been a lot of us have been forcing Tom to do a lot more social presence and communication presence. And he's just like so comfortable there. He absolutely loves it and just
he's doing
thrives in that
well
space.
though.
But he actually is. I gave him a call yesterday afternoon and just to say like we've just seen such a increase in a willingness to do it and the impact has changed. And we talk a lot about in this space about telling the story and telling our story and taking people on that journey with us. And so we've just seen that change and that impact from you doing that, Tom. So I just want to start just by saying well done, because I know you're really stepping out of your comfort zone to do that. And the results are showing.
Absolutely.
You know, people are really resonating with what you're doing. It might seem little from your side, but we see it on the other side where it's actually, great stuff's happening, mate. So well done.
Thanks, Blair. I did it because my wife called me up and said, you got to do this. And I said, cool.
Teamwork.
Text message, make sure you do it. And I'm like, okay, I'll do it.
And
so thanks, Kate. Again, thanks, Kate.
But on that, thanks so much to these guys who are really leading and guiding us in this space as well. So we're very grateful for you both.
It's been a real gentle process of just gently leading you guys in there. Definitely not peer pressure and forcing you and force feeding you all the funny reels and things that we make every week and then making you guys do it. So I'm glad we got there.
I'm just going to say I've got the black lung at the moment. So I'm going to be trying my best not to cough in the microphone, but I've just realized I've done it like 5 times already. But forgiveness is key.
We will cut that out.
While they're talking? Maybe we can do that while they're talking.
Is that like one of those?
Oh yeah,
one of those marital subconscious directives? We will cut that out. It's like it's directed at you, but I say we. It's like 100%. We will turn the light off now.
We will stop doing that. We will make me a coffee now.
That's what she says to our kids all the time.
This was actually one of our first marital fights. Was we will turn out the lights, and Tom was like, "We will turn out the lights." I think you mean you, and got out of bed, stormed over, and turned out the lights. He's like,
"You saw right."
I remember it's slightly different. It's a lot more, like I'm just going to curiously query the concept of the term "we" when maybe you mean me?
Would I do it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Win. I love that. I'm glad you saw through that because I used to do that really gently. Well, maybe not so gently.
When?
I would be like, I think we need to work on this. But then sometimes it was too subtle. And then
I'm like, we do need to work on this. Amy, you start.
Yeah, but see, we have started. It's a classic. Yeah. It's a classic. Trying to be gentle and not aggressive and ending up passive aggressive and in miscommunication.
So we started off by introducing you guys as Dad's Group founders, and obviously we're all wearing, except for Amy, I want to point out.
I don't have any Dad's Group
Man
merch.
with a Pram. Yeah, we got like 5 boxes.
I don't have any.
Over there. Anyway,
I have been given none.
We all have our Man with a Pram merch on. Share with us, guys, what is Man with a Pram?
Man with a Pram? Well, we were living in Mullumbullen Road in Ringwood, and I believe I remember walking across the road to Eastland with the pram.
The shopping centre, yeah.
Yeah, Eastland. And I was pushing Evie.
Our
firstborn. And I was like, we need to get, like, this Dad's Group thing's kind of good, but we need to get an event. And I thought, oh, Man with a Pram, Man with a Pram. That goes well.
That's
and then
awesome.
I was just talking to Kate about it. And then everything else after the idea was Kate's work. But yeah, there was that spark of the idea, like, oh, Man with a Pram, like, oh, that's cool. And then we're like, well, that's a cool way of engaging dads on Father's Day, like just push a pram. And when you're in that newborn space, it's like Father's Day isn't like, there's not a whole bunch happening. It's just like slow morning, Sunday morning, sitting at home kind of thing. And we thought that kind of goes well. I don't know, what was your and then there was like a 10-month amount of work before the next big one that we kind of did some.
Yeah, we grew it from that first one. But I think also we were at the really early stages of Dad's Group, and running Man with a Pram was such a great community initiative to really get, like, how do we get the word out there rather than just saying Dad's Group. It was a great way to get the whole family along. It was, and even intergenerational family along, grandparents, aunties, uncles, like, as many as that we could. It was like a reason to come, and that was in the starting out. That was just a really great initiative to connect with a community initiative. So yeah, connect with people.
Yeah, and it was like we wanted to build our community, right? Like we were isolated. We weren't super well connected. Ringwood wasn't our, home for 20 years before that. We were, we came back from, travel, didn't even get to our travel around the world. We came back to Ringwood and kind of set up the nest type thing, and like, oh my goodness, baby's coming, not connected. We had mum and dad there and a bit of family, but it just was, Man with a Pram was something to be excited about in relation to that transition to parenting in a way that dads could actually be involved. And I think we actually just saw people get like, cool, that sounds cool. And I think when you see other people resonate with something, you're like, oh, this might be helpful, it might be good, and then you do it, and then Eastland got on board, and they're like, oh, we'll give you this to give away, and we'll give you that to give away, and then it just snowballed, and then
it got fun.
Yeah, it got really fun, and then people were really behind it, and they're like, what do we do here? I'm like, we don't know, we're just going for let's all contribute towards make. So it's really owned by, I guess, the parents and the community that got involved.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And for our regulars, you would have heard us talk a lot about Dad's Group and Man with the Pram over the time. But for people that are tuning in for the first time, with Dad's Group, we really focus on that perinatal period for dads, which is before birth and after birth. And Tom and Kate, again, were just the spearhead of that movement of bringing that support to dads, because as we know, and as you guys can share in a bit, it's a very isolated period. So, Man with the Pram was really great to kick off that movement and that awareness to bring into that space of like, hey, dads, you don't have to do this alone. Isolation for mums as well in that perinatal period is so normal and common. We just don't talk about it much. So that's a big part of Man with the Pram and Dad's Group there. And so for you guys, for Tom and Kate, like what was the response for participants or people when you started sharing about this? Did they get it straight away, or was it something that grew over time, or what?
Yeah, I think the first thing I remember is like Kate's mum's group was kind of the space where this kind of started. Like it was, Kate was like, oh, I'll get together with some of the dads from mum's group, and that was really good, and that was really helpful for me. I was probably, on reflection, going through a lot more panics and anxiety than I thought I probably would have been. I had a big kind of fake smile on the outside, and not even being aware of what's going on in the inside. So it wasn't that I was trying to hide it, but I just wasn't actually aware of how disconnected I was. So the Man with the Pram, as Kate said, getting grandparents involved. My mum and dad were just there, and they'd walk down from Ringwood East and come and walk with us. And it was, I don't know, I think for us, people were just like, oh, that sounds fun. And I think probably Tom Forgurnis and his family would have been the first ones to line up and join us and have a coffee. And, it's just, you start talking to people like, man, there's nothing for dads. It's like,
Yeah.
how can we be so advanced in our research and perinatal, frameworks and maternal child health frameworks and child well-being frameworks, and have literally left dads out of all of this?
It's almost like until someone calls it, it's just completely forgotten. And then all of a sudden you guys being like, hey, what about this? Made people be like, oh yeah. Wow. Yeah. Because it was the same with me when I started hearing about Dad's Group, because I saw stuff on Facebook like years and years and years ago about it, just because of the community we were connected with, that were connected with you guys. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's so true. And like we'd gone through maternal child health stuff, and they always kind of had this open invite to dads, and one dad rocked up to one of their sessions, and he must have felt so uncomfortable. But I remember talking to you and just being like, did you want to come? And you're like, I don't know, did dads go? And I was like, not really. And that was kind of the extent of it. It just wasn't like on the radar until it gets called out, and then all of a sudden it just makes so much sense that it's a missing piece. But until it's called out, it's kind of hidden weirdly.
Yeah, I think on that isolation point, like for me, I was in my hometown, had friends from primary school around, but none of them were in motherhood. So I was feeling the isolation as well. Just I had, friends were at uni and, living life, and I was at home with a baby. So that connection with the mums group was a big, helped me suggest it to Tom. Just going, I know we know people, but these people are in our season. And I think I found in the early years when we were sharing about Dad's Group, you had two extremes. You either had like people go, what? Like they just didn't get it, or they were like, oh yeah, that's cool, that makes sense. So it was a really diverse response to the initial initiative. But I actually found the more I shared about it with mums, the better almost teamwork they had towards their partner. In those early years, mums could really nitpick, I guess. And then bringing this in changed a real dynamic to being a team and being a community together. It really changed the trajectory of our group and our community.
Yeah, so true.
I think it's really important, because you've got this, your culture of your mum's group or your dad's group can go either way. You can spiral quickly down into toxic discussions that aren't really helpful, or it can just be uplifting. But also that balance between genuine and authentic, like sharing the messy stuff, but not sharing it in a way that's not going to be helpful, I guess. Because helpful conversations, as we know, are not nice conversations often, but they are helpful. And I think that's something that I've kind of reflected on and gone, well, it's not a good and a bad thing. We don't want to make it binary, but is it going to be helpful, and how can this be helpful for all the people that are part of the authenticity or the piece that I'm sharing that's a messy piece, And I think that's, as Kate's sharing with mums, it just helps us to be the best version of ourselves, I think.
Yeah, we talk a lot about curiosity on this podcast, and I think that was one part of those early days of parenthood that was missing a little bit, because there's clear kind of surface level results, which is my partner is not picking up the slack. He's not engaged in parenthood. He's not doing this stuff, and I have to do all this stuff. And like that surface level frustrations, which it makes sense because it's you're already isolated, you're exhausted, and you're carrying the burden, and your partner seemingly is just not picking stuff up. But the curiosity behind it, which was, why is he not picking this stuff up? Does he feel equipped to pick it up? Did he ever get taught what to do? Does he feel supported when he tries, or does he feel nitpicked? Like all these things kind of were missing from that conversation I observed. And I think probably the reason I observed that at the time was because Blair was picking up, like he was really hands-on. And so when I would like hear these stories, I was kind of thinking, wow, that's so interesting. But he had such a different experience coming into parenthood, where he was taught what to do from an early stage through the midwives and that kind of thing, just because I couldn't do them because of how I gave birth. So it was really interesting to observe those things. But I think that's what Dad's Group brings, and what you're talking about, Tom, is things aren't easy and light. So we're not going to pretend like everything's fine and then wash over the difficult things. We don't want to do that. But there's also a balance between just being this kind of echo chamber of toxicity or frustration or the surface level results of what's going on, or being a group that can be curious and bring out those questions and look into what might be sitting behind things or what might be going on. And when dad's group comes on the picture, you can see very clearly, like we said with that aha, what's missing from a dad's initial experience into parenthood that may be contributing to his engagement with his family or his mental health or whatever else is going on. So I think that's the important piece. I love that that's one of dad's group's kind of approaches, is to, what's the phrase you always say? Not excuse a behavior, but to normalize the feelings. And I think that's really important and has probably been one of the most transformational parts of the whole organization and the whole approach.
Something that I noticed too, like, so when we were going through with our firstborn as well, like I went along to an antenatal class and stuff, and it's funny when you go through it because what you experience is the norm. So I think what you mentioned as well about dads not stepping into that space, I think a lot of times we need to be invited into that space as well. So like going along to the antenatal class, it was like I was going along to a mother's session. Like I wasn't actually going along to a session where I related to. I'm like, all right, well, why am I even here? There's a bunch of dads that were in that class, but just didn't talk to us at all. And we see a lot of different things that are coming out about how we're now changing the name from maternal to paternal. So we're focusing on parents, not just mums, but the content is still all focused on mums. So we go along to that and we're just like, why am I even here? But I didn't actually know what I needed until I needed it, So for example, we had firstborn was there. I learned a lot because we had a pretty traumatic birth for our firstborn, and you were out like genuinely literally out of it under general. So the midwives told me everything, but I'm like, sick. All right, so they've equipped me for that. Now we had our second born. I'm like, sick. We've already had a baby, so it's sort of repeat here. And then we had our third, and it wasn't until we had our third baby that I crashed. I was broken. I was like, I was just really, really struggling, and it hit me because I was like, why am I struggling now? And then it was the question, well, what do I do? Like, what do I do in this situation? Like, I don't know. Like, is this normal? Like, I felt so guilty and it's strange and stupid, honestly, because I was like, why is no one else struggling with this? And now working with Dad's group and Dad's group, even working with Dad's group has helped me so much more understand that season that I was in as well. Yeah. And it's not unique to me. And there's so many more experiences out there. So with this, like, how have you found, like, now you've been going, how long has Dad's group been around for? About 10 years, is that right? 10 years.
Yeah.
10, 11, yeah.
11. So through that, have you seen a response from dads or families in regards to like, I need this, I want this, or like before those burnout times happen or, difficult times happen, or is it something that kind of, is there interest at the beginning is my point? Like, how is that interest in regards to getting that support and being in that environment?
Yeah, I like that question because after 10 years and thousands of people coming through either an antenatal class or an online class that we've run, and the data that's come through that, the anecdotal stories you hear, then there's the people that you meet, you've actually got a pretty good understanding of what their experience is in relation to your question, which is how do they respond? Are they seeking that? Do they accept it or do they reject it? And I think you've got a pretty good mix of all of those in every space. You've got people who are like, no, I've got this. And that's what I was kind of inferring before. Our self-awareness in those early stages of parenting is actually can be quite low. That's been my experience. Self-awareness and knowing, as you said, what are these feelings? And we've grown these coping mechanisms to deal with big feelings. And then it's not until my 40s I'm starting to unpack that, validate that, use I statements, all these types of things, right? Which are really fun and hard and slow work. But going back to that question around where a dad's at, you get a really small percentage who are just like, yep, this is good, this is for me, I want to be involved in this. Then you get a percentage who are like, oh yeah, I get it, yeah, I might come down sometime. And that's probably the majority, and they think they might engage, in the next month or two, but that might be 6 months before they rock up. And then you get the other cohort, which are like, no, I'm good, I got this. Like I'm fine. I've got and interestingly, I've seen all three of them come back or re-engage with the program a year later or so, all with different experiences again. And some of them going, I had no idea. This, like, it just swiped me. And now I'm realizing I'm dealing with vicarious trauma. Now going, I actually need help, and they actually needed the same help a year ago, but they weren't aware of it. So it's like providing a space where you're self-paced, you're going, you're slowly looking at it. Like men often learn like the way they, well, I believe the way they like to learn is just through observing and being part of a community group doing things. And you look at that when you go to like, even the indigenous cultures and the important men's business with the elders and that type of thing. And even those hunting trips that we do growing up in Arnhem Land, there's this sense of like shoulder to shoulder learning, which is, quite well evidenced. And I think the principles of that allow Dad's Group to be a place where you can rock up and just sit back with a coffee and just listen to other people talk about it and then come back next week and you might be ready to share. But for 10 years, we've had experiences where guys have been armed good and then floated around the fringe. And then, even some people are like, oh, wow, Daddy's Group? No, that's it. Yeah, kid, not me. I'm cool. I'm tough. I'm a lumberjack. And no offense to lumberjacks.
Lumberjacks are people too.
They're just tough.
Lumberjacks are actually big softies inside. But those people who are not those people, they're actually us at different stages in our life. So it's really identifying that we all share these experiences of not needing help, not wanting to be seen, to be helped. And that's why we've kind of moved to that really great phrase that one of our Dad's Group leaders coined the other day, which is, if you don't need the help, be the help.
That's
and
awesome.
It's like this. It's like today you don't need it, or you don't think you need it, but you can actually be the help by rocking up and being present and listening to someone, or actually having a chat with someone else, having a laugh. And, when I started this, someone said community is the therapy. It's like they call it communitherapy. So it's like you could go and see a expensive, $250 for 30-minute counselor or psychologist, or you can come to Dad's Group and you can experience communitherapy in that therapeutic space. And if you do need more acute expert required needs, expert required services, then you can go to that. But it's kind of like this staging area of like, where am I at? Where are my kids at? And that's
it's kind of like that preventative, really, because it's that if people are going to expert help, which I think a lot of people in our culture these days does, they jump from where they're at to expert help because they're so isolated. There's so much isolation that goes on in the world at the moment, and especially in this perinatal period, and especially with dads. So if they're feeling isolated and they're going awesome for expert help and getting that, but the lack of community is probably a massive piece to that. So unless that's already something that they've engaged with, and then they still need that help, like you've just said, Tom.
Well, that's exactly what. Yeah, one of the psychologists that I think Tom Fagurnis spoke with. I remember the story back in Ringwood. He said a lot of the dads that come to me actually just need to be listened to, and they have a birth story or a birthing story that's been traumatic for them, and they're just debriefing. They don't actually need a psychologist. Like 60 to 80% of what I give can be given by any listening group of people or just a friend, And so I think that, and all this stuff with all our big scientific words, it actually just comes back to caring and friendship.
Yeah.
And community. And we've gone so far into our future thinking techno kind of expertise and ivory towers of frameworks. If we just lost that friend, I've got a friend and I can talk to them. They listen to me and I listen to them. And I've got a community, a bunch of people that we see and we do life with, and I care for them and they care for me. If you've got those things, they're the foundations of what you're talking about, Amy, around the well-being piece, the prevention piece, stop terrible stuff happening by just building basic fundamentals of humanity, and enjoy that.
Yeah, on that, birth trauma is like one of the reasons we really want to see the change in the systems of dads being screened for mental health when mums are. Because it can be even that just changes where they're at, that they don't feel they can debrief, or that starts the isolation or the disconnect. So, yeah.
Some of the mums, I remember you sharing about some of the mums who share about their partner's experience, and like even some of the mums have been surprised their partners have gone through, a traumatic experience when they themselves might have perceived the birthing experience to be a good one or a normal one.
Yeah, very, very different sides of the fence.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that makes sense because it's another blank spot, I think, in the care is the woman has all this information and support for the most part. And that's amazing because you're going through something so physically different to everything you've ever experienced. But we're the ones going through it. We haven't experienced, most of us haven't experienced watching our partner do the same thing. And I can't even imagine that element of it. Like, that must be so traumatic in its own way, but removed from the support, like we've said. It's not a piece.
That vicarious trauma piece is a really interesting one with dads, because it's often not unpacked. It's often leaves a legacy and, of compounding internalized challenges that have not been worked through. And what we've really learnt is that can have a really detrimental impact on your relationship with your child. So your connection and bonding with your child can be limited, or your connection and bonding with your partner. So you can start to drift away from each other, drift away from your family, find yourself really like imagine the yuckiness of feeling, I don't want to see my partner now, or I don't want to see my child now, but I feel so ashamed of that feeling. And I think these are the types of places where so many people have experienced these feelings and they don't know the pathway to resolution or resolve or a better way, because they've just got these big, heavy feelings. And I think the opportunity for us is to, as Blair, you said, normalize some of these feelings and help people walk through what is your goal, what's your long-term outcome. Because whilst you might not be able to see, resolution with your infant, or resolution or relationship restoration with your partner, you still might deep down want that. And I think if you do, we need to provide those opportunities to go, your horrible, yucky feeling is not necessarily the end state of this experience for you or this season. There is a way to walk through this with peers, but also experts, to navigate a way to actually what you deep down really want. So I think that's probably some of the stuff that we're really excited to be able to just be part of people's journey, or help people on that journey, not in their lives personally, but create platforms and spaces where this good work can happen. Because we know this good work is the stuff that will really change the outcomes of that infant growing up, the safety, the security, the love, the care that they experience, but also the richness of the relationship of mums and dads who, like, we want to be the best version of ourselves. We're inhibited by so many traumatic and tragic experiences from our life.
And on that, just to encourage, like, no time is too late. Absolutely. As well. Someone that we maybe 2 years ago were going through unpacking a lot, and a lot of stuff from those early years came up, and the conversations and navigating through that brought such a freedom to our relationship and our family. And that was like, 8 years post our first, and 6 years post our last. So no time is too late to dive into the stuff that has sat there, and that feeling, and the connection that it can bring between you and your partner, of sharing your experience, and your partner just being willing to listen and see you and your experience be heard, So there's no time's too late, and you'll be surprised if I can advocate for how it can bring a freedom and a newness to your connection and your relationship with not just your partner, but your kids as well.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And to like also highlight that in doing that, in my experience personally, it's also the scariest thing I ever freaking did. And
absolutely.
Yes. So if you're listening to this going, yuck, I don't want to do that yet, I get it, because, putting that off for a couple of years or maybe more is a normal thing to do. And it just sits there. But it does, like a trailer, it just follows you through your whole life until you're ready to deal with that stuff. And I think, it's never fully resolved, but it's a thing that you learn through and you grow through. And if you can grow through that with people that you love, and you can actually be seen and heard by them as you go through it, that's the depth of what we're created for, that relationship, that connection, and that sense of purpose. You meet each day with your challenges of your kids with a sense of like, but we're in this together. And I say that not like knowing that I've spent probably more of those 10 years not in that space than in that space. So not to say, hey, it's easy, and just it's such a big opportunity and a big hard fight and a continual piece of work, which is, I guess, all the work that you guys are doing this stuff for. Honey, we need to chat, is because of that yucky feeling you feel on a Thursday night when things you're not connecting, and it's it's got to be said. And if it's not, you're going to just sit with that yucky feeling until you just roll over and go to sleep.
Well, like you say, when communication dies, bad things happen, and that's the stuff that sits there without being aired and talked about. And yeah, it's really painful. It's yucky and it doesn't feel right, but it brings healing. And otherwise, like you said, it's like a trailer that follows you. It doesn't just disappear on its own.
Yeah. That thing's still here.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing, is the conversations aren't always easy, but they're so important to be able to move forward and grow. And something I love about Dad's Group, and I've experienced as well, and we work with a lot of dads and Dad's Group leaders about this too, is that whole sharing thing that we're talking about is like, it's kind of taught you like a lot of dads or guys need to learn that. We haven't learnt that. So that's such a foreign thing to do, because we either haven't seen it modeled to us or it's just not the thing that you do, right? So what I love with Dad's Group is we create that space. It's not now you need to come along to a Dad's Group and be like, all right, now tell us everything, share with me everything. It's just like, no, come and hang out. And once after a while, if we can create that culture of these places like these groups and these catch-ups where we just do that and they observe that, they do lean into that as well, and they start to open up too. A big part of that is, how do we engage dads? Because as we've shared, like, that piece is so hard to do. Like, this is not the norm in Australia for men to get together and connect and to share and all that sort of stuff. So you shared with me a while ago about, well, how did you guys overcome that? So Tom, you were trying to get groups together, like, dads to catch up and stuff, but that wasn't always easy. So what did you guys do about that?
So how do we get the dads together? Oh, well, where do you find, like, the old where do you find dads?
Thinking.
Yeah. Where do you find dads? Well, firstly, I think, Kate's mum's group had all the dads in it, and I think she was just like, oh, I'll get
I've got an
Craig,
audience of 12 for you.
Yeah, I'll get Craig and some of the other dads to go and hang out. And you could just tell the first time we caught up, seriously, Craig's like, my wife told me to do this. And I'm like, yeah, my wife told me to do this. And then someone else, yeah, cool, let's just grab a coffee. Yeah, cool. We don't need each other. No needs here. No, I've got no needs. I've got no needs.
No.
No
What
needs.
the mums did is we went, let's all have coffee without our infants, but let's get we all know we're all still feeding and all sorts at the time. So where we strategically said, let's have a coffee here and send the guys over here, which is just across the road with the babies and the library, to have a coffee there. And then we all come together. So we're going to this all in the same car together.
We all arrive
together.
Yep.
And then the dads head over there and the mums head over there. And
awesome.
Why I wanted to actually highlight that, though, is because what that shows is the teamwork of bringing that change, right? So Tom, whether you knew you need that support in that time or not, the fact that you guys were able to orchestrate that together was really important. And so something that we're exploring now as well, and what we're encouraging is, again, so if you're listening to this and you're thinking like, oh, my partner needs this, like he needs to go do this, just have that sensitive approach to that as well. Be like, well, this might be very much out of his comfort zone. This might not be normal at all. So how can this be done? How can this support be for him? But how can you bring that together? How can you actually achieve that together? And I think that's just a great example of that.
Yeah. And on that, Blair, we do try and encourage family days in dads groups. It's a great start for new families to come along so they can come together, and it's a little bit less intimidating than just a guy coming down with his baby to those sort of social events. Also too, on that, that was how it started, but I got to the point maybe a few months in and realized how much I needed that time that Tom then would go off confidently with our newborn and meet up with the dads for coffee, that I would bank on that time and think in the week, dream in the week, how am I going to use that? What do I really need this week? And sometimes it took self-discipline just to have rest, and other times it was like, I'm going to book my hair, or I'm going to catch up with that friend that doesn't have babies that I really love. But it was something to look forward to in my week. And I think that's one of my biggest advice to new parents is have something to look forward to in your day and something to look forward to over your week. And that really created this space, this guaranteed locked in time that I could just bank on, for, walk or sleep, or sometimes I just really wanted to mop my floors, and that sounds silly, but it was your thing.
I get that feeling all the time.
Our son has tried to tell us. Have you heard him complain?
No.
Recently, he's like, "Can someone vacuum the floors?" He's getting really frustrated by the feel on his feet, and I was like, "Bud, you can do it."
Yeah. Is that our youngest? Is that our toddler?
No, he doesn't.
He
does, no.
But that's actually a really good point too, Kate. So, we're talking about dad's group. We're talking about man with a pram. But what impact has that had on the family, though?
I reckon
I think unity.
Interestingly, when it doesn't,
Yeah, believe it or not, I think when it was probably 3 years in, Tom wrote an article, and I read he sent it through to me like, "Oh, this article got published," and I read it, and I just cried because I was like, was this really your experience? So, like, I really, in that writing that he did, and the specific questions that the journalist asked, like, really pulled up what Tom's experience was. And I just had no idea how you were feeling, really. I think how understanding where your partner's at can bring to stuff like that empathy, that compassion. It brings a sense that you're able to also maybe then share where you're at and make a plan like, okay, how do we, right, if this is where we're at, how do we do this? Like there's this unity that comes from it.
Yeah.
Something that we speak about a lot too is that we've experienced this 100%. Like when dads are supported, the whole family's supported. In that period, like the reason why I was able to be so supportive to Amy was because, as mentioned before, she was under general anesthetic. There was she couldn't receive that information. I was the only one there, and so everyone was so I was actually equipped, and I could be that support. But we hear of a lot of dads that are in that similar position where their partner isn't under general anesthetic, and they're like, "What do I do now? Like, I don't know how to do this." And we hear a lot of these stories as well of I share it sometimes as well. No dad that I've ever met says I'm going to be the worst dad ever. I've never ever met a dad to say that. All I hear is dad saying I'm going to be the best dad, or I'm not going to be like my dad was, or anything. And then they go into parenthood, and they're like, "But how do I do that? I don't know how to do that because this is so unexpected. I'm not ready for this. I haven't been trained for this. I haven't been equipped for this." And that's where we see some really drastic and sad circumstances sometimes. But just really that equipping is of the dad is really setting them up to better support the family. So we do see that ripple effect as dads are better supported, the family's better supported.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think, to your question, what's the impact on your family and other people's families and stuff? Again, some people learn different ways, going back to that learning journey for parents. Some people read books, some people listen to a bunch of podcasts, some people do, watch movies, some people do all the above, and some people like to learn shoulder to shoulder slowly. And they're all great learning ways to become the best parent you can be. However, in an environment where you're in situ with that kind of experiential learning, that's a space where I just always love to share, sharing about connecting with some of the dads in my group. One of them was my brother-in-law, and the way he interacted with his kids was different to the way he interacted with mine. And I've always said, Matt, I love the way you connect with your kids and with all kids. Like he just has this connection in the way he does it. And I think for me, that's a really deep life learning lesson in a moment. They're the types of gold nuggets that get to be shared with each other without going and doing a course or an MBA on, parenthood, fatherhood, or research, all this kind of stuff. But they're happening all the time. And, again, also come back to the whole, our First Nations, culture with 60,000 years and the oldest living, culture in history. And, they haven't got these huge buildings and these big, white papers and these research establishments, but they're carrying a culture, and they've handed that down through these spaces of being under a tree or around a fire or doing women's business and men's business and community business together. And these guys are the custodians of the values they move through the generations. And I really feel like that was a big part of the heart of Dad's group is like don't miss out on what the older generation can share with you. So having my dad there as part of it and those good, positive grandparent role models, and don't miss out on the opportunity to normalize some of the challenges you're going through, because if you can see that your challenges is actually somewhat normal, that a million people have gone through something similar to you, and a million people are going through something similar to you right now, and a million people will go through, and that's just Australia. With the globally, there's even more. So if you can normalize it and go, okay, there is a pathway here, and you got something really special for the hard times, and the hard times just they keep punching all of us in the face. Like it's non-stop. It's not this week, it'll be next week, you don't have 365 great days every year. And I think when you don't have those great days, if you can be proactive in building, I guess, that support network of friends and family, like we're really lucky. We've got one of our dad's group mates just lives over the road, and his babies are crawling over to our house, and that community is so special. And not everyone has the benefit, but you can go and make it. You can go out there and be intentional about it and chat to your wife or your partner and see what she thinks. She's going to have some great ideas for you and vice versa.
Well, I want to say too, because you mentioned something really briefly about, your dad being a part of Dad's group. So for those that are watching on YouTube, you can tell that we don't live close to Tom and Kate. They're in shirts. Amy and I are rugged up. I think we got a snow blizzard actually happening at the moment in the snow area. Legit, it's crazy. So, but I actually live close to Tom's dad, who attends our dad's group, and you just see when he comes along, just that experience and coming into the conversation is so special. And so, for all of our listeners as well, you might be like, "Well, I'm not in that perinatal period. I don't just have a baby," but you might know someone that does, and you might be a grandparent because we know you there. You've written into us, so. Be involved, right? So we're talking about Man with a Pram. We're talking about Dad's Group. Join one. You can go onto the website, dadsgroup.org or manwithapram.com, and check those out and sign up. Be a part of this support. You don't have to just be a new dad to be part of that, because it's the experiences that you bring. It's the life lessons that you bring. It's so powerful. You might not even have kids yet. Join it before you have kids. Be a part of that. It's so much easier to have support when you've already got it around you than find it when you need it. So I want to encourage you with that.
Yeah, like Tom said, if you're not needing the help, be the help.
And on that, two of our most successful groups was actually, one was a granddad who just knew for his son this would be awesome, but it was a lot to facilitate. So he just was like, I'm going to facilitate this for you. And he did the background of it and showed up, and these other guys showed up, and he was just like this granddad and was just present. And another one is one of our maternal health nurses, but all the leaders in our group call her Nana Kim because she's just like, she's amazing. And she just goes, I just set up the space and let the guys do their thing. So really, like, these two people who are a generation out of this, facilitating this, just like created such a space for this to be a place of ease for parents to walk in and walk out of, and just be cared for by that other generation,
Yeah, and picking up on the golden thread there, if we look at those stories and a few others, Nana Kim, massive facilitator behind the scenes. The grandfather talked about, Joe and his son. I also know behind the scenes his wife did a huge amount of the heavy lifting and making that happen. Joe was that ambassadorial piece, but also his wife, the grandma, massive instigator in bringing this together. I know, Sam Cook, like if you actually trace through all our stories, behind them, amazing women doing some incredible, empowering work to help those families succeed and those fathers connect with other fathers, because they often see or experience the need the man has before the man is even aware of it. And I think that's not something to be shy away from. That's something to just embrace and go, that's a cool element of relational growth together. I think it absolutely works vice versa. Like, we sometimes see our partners, our wives, a need that they haven't seen yet. And that's the journey of working together. But just a key acknowledgement of those powerful, quiet female women leaders in our communities that, latch onto this. I even think of Helen Funk, and then Helen Gunter, and these midwives and child health nurses, and Kerry, who we met up in Mount Isa. These are the people who just get on board and they quietly make it happen. And I think that's a really important shout out to grandparents and people who think, maybe Dad's group's not for me. Well, Dad's group branded like that to make sure it's not another play group where mums and kids are and there's no dads.
Yeah.
And that's not a slide on any play group. That's a reference to our cultural adaptation of what parenting looks like has become a mum's job. And it's moving away from that. We're just championing the people who are helping move away from that into it can be whatever you guys want it to be as parents. Dad's group is like highlighting this is a space for you if you want to be involved. And here's the reasons why you could be involved.
Yeah. And just on that too, like I would not be the dad that I am today if Amy wasn't, as invested in my fatherhood as I am, right? And I genuinely believe Dad's group wouldn't be the way that it is now as an organization if we didn't have Kate and Amy speaking into that space from a mum's perspective. Like, it's so true. It's not, we'd say it's called Dad's group. It's called Man with a Pram. That's to help dads be like, look, man, this is your space. Come and join this space. Actually, the heart of it is, hey, everyone, you hear this, come and join us. Even Bonnie wants to join right now. So needy.
I wrote one word down, which I think for me in the last season has been really powerful. And in relation to the stuff that a discussion like this might bring up for people, it most likely will bring up some stuff if you're deeply listening to some of the challenges, maybe trauma in your life, either as a child or as a parent or as a child, the children that you're parenting, their trauma, or it might be your partner's trauma. It might be uncomfortable conversations and all those types of things. The one word I would like people to leave with as an encouraging positive word is slow. And just give yourself and your family slow time to slow down and have reflection. Essentially, it looks like on the outside you're not achieving anything, but there's things happening in those deep waters of your soul that is really important. And we've learned that with our kids and their needs, and wondering should they be more active and doing more things. And I've just really connected in with being slow to be able to have that space to reflect, and that if I'm not going, like I really value coming back home after a trip for work or whatever and just having space to sit and think and reflect, because that helps consolidate what you believe. Yeah. And then it helps when you actually go and be present with someone to sharing from your heart and soul, or listening from your heart and soul and asking curious questions. And I feel like I've ran real fast for 10 years and now I'm getting to a point where I'm like, actually, there's real power in going slow, and that slowness really invites someone else to slow down. And we were talking, Kate, you and I were talking about our kids, and some of them, with their anxiousness or worriedness about different things, and what do you do? And like I said the word bludge. I think I just bludge next to them, so it looks like you're just doing nothing, but it's almost like intentional bludging time, so that they sense your presence. There's nothing to achieve. You got time. That's and then awesome. From that place, allow silence to happen and be comfortable with that. And then from that space bubbles up a little question or something. And there it is. There's a gold nugget, and you just you roll with that and you're cool. Tell me more about that.
That's so good. I love that. I love the setting of that culture without having to overtly be like, this is what we're doing. You're just allowing that space and bringing that into your parenting, and hopefully also bringing that into your rhythms as a parent and as a partner. That's awesome. Guys, this has been a really good chat. And as always, we could chat with you guys forever and keep going, because there's so much to talk about. And obviously, it's a space that we're all really passionate about. But in the wrap up of this, where can people learn more about Dad's group? Where can people learn more about Man with a Pram? If someone was listening to this and they're like, this sounds like something I want to get on board with, where would you send them?
dadsgroup.org is the website, and manwiththepram.com is the Man with the Pram site, so you can jump on board. I think that's probably the place that I'd point you, but also just consider, like, what is it that you want to build? Like, think about your own community. And if you don't have a community, like, how do you want to build that? And make that real, make it slow, reach out and start. Like, our passion isn't for our organization or our events to grow. Our passion is for people to have meaningful experiences and grow their village, so that you have, we're catalyzing change in your local families and villages. And that's the important piece there. This is just a platform, one of many that you can begin that, and it's really, there's not many like it for fathers. So we're really excited to make that space an invitational space and go on your learning journey and share that with us. We'd love to hear about your learning journey there.
And on that, it is such a journey. I've been on such a such a journey and done some of our hardest years most recently, and we are so human. And we're blessed to have our team. We have Amy and Blair on our team who are just, we couldn't be doing what we're doing without all the people in our community around us. And just know wherever you're at that it's just starting there. To quote Amy and Blair, just pick up a brick, do one from your last podcast.
You listen to the episode.
Yeah. That was so encouraging to me. And today was such a brick. But yeah, it's a journey, and just you're hearing a decade for us in an hour. I don't know how else to say it, but we're not awesome. We're very human.
You are awesome, and you're very human.
Yeah, and in that, but we found great blessing, great freedom in embracing our very humanness and just going, at times we don't know how to move forward in this, and getting support and getting help. So we run a support company because we know how much support has grown, been everything to us.
Yeah.
So
to echo that, it's if you're feeling like, oh goodness, I'm not as polished, and that we're not polished, and it's the mess, and allowing that mess to actually work through that mess is more often a mess. And some days there's no way we could just sit here and have this conversation. Today we can, yay, it's working. But other days we can't. And so I'd hate to think for a minute that someone thinks, oh, they've got their together, but we're just it's very important to us that behind the scenes it's just as messy. This morning getting the kids ready for school, there's challenges. There was missing socks and tears,
man.
and
socks need to be out. Socks are the worst. And that's what we say on the podcast all the time. We're all real people, and that's why we have these conversations, and it's easy to have it in a nice, neat episode where it sounds wrapped up nicely. And the heart behind it is really important, because these conversations need to happen. But there's a truth behind the reason we're in these positions is because we're real people with real problems. And the more we can expose that, or the more we can be honest and raw with that, the more other people feel heard and seen, and can hopefully join in on that as well.
Yeah. And on that, for us, communication has been a space we've had to do so much groundwork on. And so encourage you guys in that. Keep listening to this podcast as I keep weekly how to communicate.
Thanks, Kate.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and thank you guys so much for just being available for this space. You've done such a great job, and we just love, as Amy said before, just chatting with you guys more about that.
There is still time to sign up for Man with a Pram when this episode comes out. It's only going to be for a week. So Father's if you're listening past a week, Father's Day weekend. And if it's past that, look at next week. Next year, sorry. Look at the next year's.
Or next week. And, we've got, if you're in Paris, there's a walk going to be there.
United Kingdom,
now. America. Where's the American one, Blair? Pennsylvania. I've always wanted to go there. And Tajikistan. We don't have any dads in Tajikistan or Kyrgyzstan, so we're looking for a Kyrgyzstan walk. We've got Singapore. We've got South Africa. Looking for someone in the Americas.
Wherever you're listening, you can do a Man with a Pram walk or join one that's happening. And also, as Tom said, the Dads Group website, and I'm saying this because I respond to the info at inbox, so I have to do this all the time. There's resources there for anyone listening that are from us or from partners that we have that are really supportive in this perinatal mental health space. And also, if you're listening and you do want to start this community and you want help, there's really clear, really easy to step through resources to get you established, and a Dads Group community behind you as well. So please check that out.
Right.
Awesome.
Good chat, guys. See you next week.
See ya.